I've done a video in a while. I've had other things to do, you know, life. So I want to talk about the different styles of katanas that are actually made, blade-wise, the geometries. Because there's actually several that they did over the years. One of the very early, from my research, the very earliest blade geometry was the Hira. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have one. But the Hira, if you've seen a splitting maul, where it's just, and I'll throw an image up of one, of what it looks like. But basically, it's like that. Okay, it's very steep angles on either side. And it has a flat on the bottom. Now, the problem with a Hira, Zakuri blade, is prone to taking bends. When they were forging them, they were also prone to, don't think too much nowadays, but back in their time, they were prone to cracking and breaking while in the forging process even. Well, when they had to come up against the Mongol invasion, they were no good against the Mongol swords and their weapons and their armor. So they had to devise a different type of blade. Now, granted, the Shinogi Zakuri at the time kind of existed too, later a little bit on. So, and we all seen the Shinogi Zakuri. So this is a Shinogi Zakuri. Okay. Shinogi means ridgeline. So this has a bohi. And you'll see it right there. That ridgeline. So, which is the most iconic blade that we all see all the time, is a Shinogi. And it's a good blade. Don't get me wrong. That's why it's still around, still used the most today, is because it's such a strong blade. Let me get one without a bohi in it so you can better see that ridge line. So there we go. Without the bohi, you can really see that ridge line right there. Okay. So this adds more structure to the blade so it doesn't bend. So at the time, they needed something that they could use to fight the Mongols invasion. Mongols wore, of course, metal armor, and on top of that with leather armor. Well, with a regular katana, you can stab, but it's not really easy to do. You know, there's different ways that makes it easier to stab. Hence, you could say the okasaki that people have done, which is like that. That's an okasaki, where the tip is elongated. So they needed a blade that was less prone to bending, could pierce the leather of the Mongols if they were in combat sword to sword. And the other thing that a Shinogi Zakuri will do is create a drag back here because of this ridge line. Okay, it's just flat. A Hira doesn't create a drag because there's no ridge line. But then again, there's no structural strength in it. So if you hit it hard enough, it bends. So how do you get around? Their thinking was, how do we get around from the sword not getting bent in battle, can pierce their leather armor, and doesn't create a drag, so the speed of the blade keeps going at the momentum you want it to? Well, they came up with this. Now this looks like a Shinogizukuri. And it almost is. Now, this one I had custom made. This is actually the second one. This is a Shobu. Now, since they broke the first one and they had to get it out to me, you notice it has a regular Kisaki on it. That's okay. Normally, it would have a tip like that, what we call an okisaki. A shobu means iris leaf because the tip looks like an iris leaf. So that's one way you can tell if it's a shobu. The other way you can tell is if I turn this around, if you look at that ridge line, it's inverted. See, it comes up. So instead of the ridge line being like that, the ridge line is like that. So basically your blade looks like this. And what that creates is, when you're cutting, once it gets to this point right here, right there, where the drag would be, there's no drag and keeps going. And this looks kind of dirty. It's not, it's just oiled up. So that was their process of eliminating the sword bending, the sword having a drag, and could pierce through leather, was the shobu. And they were made in a tachi form. Now the Shinogizukuri, the reason why it still exists to this day and is so popular is because it is such a stout blade. It's less prone to bending than other blades. Now shobu is the same way. It is, you could say, technically a Shinogizukuri, but there are variations to it. If you don't pay close attention to that ridge line, you could mix the two up very easily, except for the extinct tip, which this mine doesn't, so that makes it kind of unique. But I have yet to have a Shinogizukuri bend on me. You know, even my 1060s. And it's because that ridge line really creates a stronger structural blade. So if you look at European swords where they're double bladed, it has a pitch in the center for it, okay, on both sides. And that's the strength of it, so it's less prone to bending. That's why they do it that way. So as years went on, of course, the Japanese tried to develop other blades. There is some other unique blades. I forget the one of them. It looks kind of like an Unabakai Zukuri, but it isn't. It's actually a double-sided blade. Now, the Unabakai Zukuri is one of the best cutters out there. And it's thinned out, of course, on the back here. They dig out a lot of meat from here to the tip. And then the tip is reinforced. Double bohi. Now there is a style of Unabakai that has no bohi in it. Carl Ruger actually has one. And I think Matthew Jensen just acquired one. It has a certain name, and I can't think of it right now. Go over to Carl Ruger's page if you don't follow him, and look for his video. And it might be, it's not his most recent video. It's like 2 or 3 down from his most recent, I think. It's a very nice sword, but it is Unabakai. But it has because it doesn't have a bohi, it's called something else. But it's a Unabakai Zakuri geometry. And what makes this such a good cutter, again, is because this meat back here is taken out, and it's inverted like the Shobu. So it's kind of like just more extreme than the Shobu. So it's like they took the Shinogi Zakuri and a Shobu and mixed the two together, you could kind of say. But they're very light, very nimble. These are the type of swords you could really do trick cuts with, because it's so maneuverable. Like this one right here, out of all these swords, I do believe this is my lightest. This weighs 2 pounds. Just almost exactly 2 pounds is all this weighs. It is so light and nimble. Oh, excuse me, no. This is 2 pounds, 3 ounces. So it's 3 ounces higher. It's my Ghost of Tsushima sword my wife got me that actually weighs 2 pounds exactly, and it's a Shinogi. But I was looking at this Unabakai, how they do the back, and it's like I said, it's like they took a Shinogi Zakuri and a Shobu and put the two together, kind of. But this thing is nice in the hands. And if you haven't cut with an Unabakai yet, you really need to when you get the chance. You will notice a total difference in cutting performance. I think my best cutters out of all my swords, I mean, for if you want speed for cutting, is this one and my Shobu. And it's just because of the way they're designed. Like I said, when you cut with Shinogi Zakuris, you can feel the drag. Even though you're still moving that sword at the speed that you're swinging it, you'll feel a little resistance in there. It doesn't matter how sharp you get it, that ridge line is going to slow it down. Now, when you get into the Hira, like I was saying, they kind of pulled away from that because they're prone to bending. So this, my Otanto, they would make either the Tanto or the Wagasashi, they would make a Hira Zakuri style blade. The reason being is because since it's so much shorter, it's less prone to bending. Because if you look at this guy right here, look at that Mune. Look how thick that thing is. Okay. It's got a really thick spine. And most Tantos and Wagasashis, that's how they are. When you use a regular sword, okay, not counting, you know, like the Unabakai, but we'll use this one because this is my Aido and it's not sharp. So if you look at it, starts off thick and then it starts tapering out thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, because like I said, this is your cutting range in here where the part is thinned out the most. So the bend would be created in here. Now, does that mean Harazakuri blades are no good. No. It's just, if you do a really bad cut with them, they're going to bend. That's just the way it is. Steel has to have a give point to it. Now you can get these spring steels 9260. People are starting to get into S5, S7. Yeah, they'll spring back. But the problem, you got to remember, every time, if you constantly do bad cuts, even though it's designed to spring back, you're restructuring that metal in there. Okay, what I mean and what I'm talking about is the molecules reposition themselves every single time. Okay, so if you bend that, the molecules shift. Okay, the sword comes back again. Those molecules aren't going back to the way they were. They stay now shifted. Okay, so if you constantly keep doing that, bad cuts, and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's just a spring back, look, I put my foot on, I can do it, and you keep doing that, what happens is those molecules, as they keep shifting, they're staying there. So what's going to happen is you're going to create, after a while, a weak point, because you made the metal too elastic. Okay, so there is drawbacks to spring steel, and steel that does spring back. You have to be mindful of it. Just because they'll do it, you don't want to be like, not care and go, well, I'll just cut this and I'll cut that, it'll just spring back. Those molecules aren't coming back to the way they were. They stay. They come here, they shift, comes back, they may go a little bit, and that's it. It's like if you heat metal up, the molecules in it disperse into different areas. Then when it cools down, they're repositioned in different areas. Same thing. You move those molecules in there. Okay? Especially when it's no heat is the worst. Even though it's designed to do that, you want to be mindful of it. I've worked with steel for over 25 years, and I've seen steel that shouldn't break, they say, just disintegrate. And it's because if you put too much of a load on it for too many times, it's got to give. It's just the way it is. It's going to give. So it's quite interesting how over the years, the Japanese developed different style blades for their uchi katanas to suit the times of what was going on. Like I said before, did they perfect it? Well, yeah, for them, they did. They did perfect it for themselves. And as the years went on, they made different blades, different blade lengths. They made them longer, they made them shorter. They experimented with them. But overall, the one that outlasted all of them, of course, is the Shinogi Zakuri. And there's a good reason for it. Like I said, it's got a really good structural blade. So that's why it's lasted for so long and is so iconic. It is just durable. You know, why are you going to change something out that's working perfectly fine? I have, or both my wife and myself have, from Swords of Northshire, our katanas. On the end here, it tapers out even more than this, down thinner. And I have cut bottles with mine, which is just a 1060, and it's never bent. I mean, it's a nimble sword too. you can really move it around. This one's, you can feel the front heaviness. And that's the difference between a shinogi and a unobukai. You shouldn't feel, in an unobukai, you shouldn't feel that much front heaviness, if any, with one of these. You might feel a little bit, but you should be able to wield this thing and be in total control of it. Like there's nothing to it. I can wield this all day long and not get tired. Which is another important thing to, well, basically any sword, is the balance. See, like this one, my Aida one, it's kind of front heavy. But it's a wide blade. It really is a wide blade. I mean, it's not super wide, but it's good enough. And this has even got a bohie in it, which lightens the blade. And then we have this one right here. Now the funny thing is, this one's not as front heavy as the other Shinogi Zakuri. And they're about the same blade. So it's all your POB, point of balance, where it is in here. Now our swords of Northshire, those are balanced really, really well. I think it's my Wagasashi my wife had made for me. I can balance it like that with the blade edge up on my finger, and it's towards the Suba, just like this, and it'll just balance just perfectly there. That's a good balancing point. The other unique thing about the Shobu, besides it not having a Kasaki, because Shobus they don't have a Kasaki, is they never have a bohie. Shobus never have bohie in them. Unibukais do, Shinogi Zakuris do, Hiras can have one, but a Shobu never, I have never ever seen a Shobu with a bohie from my research. And Shobus are actually hard to find, especially antique ones. Not like a dime a dozen, not like a Shinogi. Now, people thought Tontos don't have bohies in them, but they do. You can have bohies like I did this. I had them do double bohie in it. And I really, really like how they did this. I just wish I had a Hira Zakuri to show you. But like I said, I'll throw an image up of one, the shape of it. But out of all these swords, the only ones, if you really had to use it in a battle, I think the only two I would use out of this whole thing is a Shinogi Zakuri or my Shobu. And that's only because they're structurally sound blades. Like I said, less prone to bending. Whereas Unibukai, since it's really thinned out right here, I mean, you might get away with using one, but then again, if somebody probably struck one of these at the right point, it would just bend right over. So, and that's my personal opinion on that. And hang on a second. I just want to say, there, okay. I just want to give a shout out to Fletcher Hartwig. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel. Thank you for the comments. I appreciate it. I really do. But he is getting his very first katana. And he's having Jaku make it. I told him I never dealt with them. I was honest. Not yet, I haven't. But he liked what the features they offered, and he ordered his very first one. So I told him I'll be keeping an eye out for his video. Hopefully he does one. But he's got some other stuff. I think he has one video on his channel. So that's kind of cool. I think he picked out some really good stuff for his sword and whatnot. So probably going to have a new person in the Blade community coming up, which is kind of cool. You know, that's what we all do, is try and help other people out, get the information out there, what have you. But if you haven't noticed, pretty much almost all my swords are black. You know, totally blacked out. This one, it's more like patina, like I would say really dark copper or whatever. You know, but it's all blacked out. So even this one is kind of, except for the white. San Miguel. That's all I have for you guys, is basically the development of their swords and how some of them kind of came about. I mean, the Unibukai came about because of the Naginata. But it's also still, when you think about it, it was kind of crossed between a Shobu and a Shinogi Zakuri, which is what you got out of that was an Unibukai. So I will see you all later, and have a good one.